So, good afternoon, everyone. So, we're going to start the Sutta class. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ namasami. So today we do this, reading this Majjhima Nikaya Sabbasava Suttas, all the Taints. So, because one of the reasons I choose these suttas because the Buddhas talk about this, all the Taints. Anyone knows what the Buddhas refer to all these Taints? This asava. So there are 3 types of asava. So what are the 3? There is a karma asava, and bhava asava, and avijja asava. This is the taints, this is the defilements that keep us in, this is the underlying tendency to keep us in the samsara. This is the taints. That's why the Buddhas, in these suttas, the Buddhas talk about the destruction of all these taints. So this is the defilements that keep us in the samsara. So these taints actually is different, the context is different from the 3 defilements that we usually mention, that is greed, hatred and delusion. Is that the context is different. That is more referred to the ethical, that is unwholesome deeds. That's these 3 defilements, that is a greed, hatred and delusion. So that's why hatred is not one of the asava, but the craving, the greed is the craving. So the Buddhas mentioned again and again, they said anger is, they said no, greed is less blamable, but it's difficult to remove. Anger is blamable, but easier to remove. And delusion, ignorance, is very blamable and is very difficult to remove because of delusion, isn't it? Ignorant, we don't know. That's why we have this greed. So usually this hatred, anger actually is derived from greed, isn't it? When pleasant feelings we like, then we want more. If we cannot get what we want, we got angry, we get upset. So in this dependence, in this Four Noble Truths, the source of suffering is a craving to be exist, isn't it? The 3 cravings, the craving sensory pleasure, that's a craving to be, craving not to be. That's the bhava asava. And the other one is a karma asava. Karma asava is our sensory pleasure. That is the taints. That is the underlying tendency. That is the one who keeps us in the samsara. So I will start reading this, and then if any questions you can ask. So, all the taints. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the bhikkhus thus, "Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir," they replied. The Blessed One said this, "Bhikkhus, I shall teach you a discourse on the restraint of all the taints. Listen and attain closely to what I shall say." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this. Okay, so that's right. The destruction of the taints, we need to restrain first, isn't it? To weaken the taints before we be able to totally uproot, the destruction of that, we have to restrain first. It's just like we're cutting a big tree. We have to get off the branches, bit by bit until, to half, then only we uproot the whole thing. So there's like the whole path of practice, that's like the start from the restraint, how to restrain these taints or this underlying tendency, not to allow this underlying tendency to arise. So when it's already arise, how to not to allow it to go further. So if we are not careful, if we are heedless, we get caught, isn't it? When this taint, we allow this taint arise, and those unarisen one arise, and those already arisen become stronger. So we strengthen those taints. Then this the taints that really keep us in the samsara, keep us in this whole cycle of rebirth. So, bhikkhus, I said that the destruction of taints is for one who knows and see, not for one who does not know and see. Who knows and see what? So, this knows and see actually is referred to the wisdom aspect. That is that through our wisdom it's not the physical eye seeing. That is the knowing and the seeing that is from the mind. That is the wisdom aspect. So, wise attention and unwise attention. When one attends unwisely, unarisen taints arise and arisen taints increase. So they said if we attend unwisely to those unwisely, unarisen taints arise and arisen taints increase. When one attends wisely, unarisen taints do not arise and arisen taints are abandoned. So like sometimes like if we don't attend, like we don't reflect, we don't give consideration, that is like we are giving the condition for those taints to arise. So he further said, bhikkhus, there are taints that should be abandoned by seeing. There are taints that should be abandoned by restraining. There are taints should be abandoned by using. There are taints that should be abandoned by enduring. There are taints that should be abandoned by avoiding. There are taints that should be abandoned by removing. There are taints that should be abandoned by developing. So now it started each one of them. What are the taints that is should abandon by seeing? So he said, what taints, bhikkhus, should be abandoned by seeing? Here, bhikkhus, an untaught ordinary person who has no regard for noble ones and is unskilled, undisciplined in the Dhamma, who has no regards for true men and is unskilled and undisciplined in the Dhamma, does not understand what things are fit for attention and what things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he attends to those things unfit for attention and he does not attend to those things fit for attention. So what are the things unfit for attention that he attends to? There are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taints of sensual desire arise. Just like about seeing, like we seeing a good things that we like, For example, a man see a beautiful girl, okay, the sensual desires arises in him. So by seeing that, so when that arising in him, then the arisen taints of sensual desire increase because they get caught. So that is the taints, because you have this sensual pleasure. When this sensual pleasure arises in one person, so the arisen taints of sensual pleasure, the sensual desires increase. The arisen taints of being arise in him and arisen taints of being increased, the unarisen taints of ignorance increase in him, and the arisen taints of ignorance increase. That means that when we have these sensual desires, arises, or these sensual desires already arise and is increased. When these sensual desires increase, that is leading up to our what arises, that is being arises. How we identify, that our experience with sensory pleasure. Like for example, there is a contact, so that is feeling arises. Then where we get caught, then there is a greed, there is the sensual desires, the greed. Then this craving arises, craving being. So we identify those experiences as being, we are the, like for example, when we experience pleasure, so we take it to be me and mine. That is, we identify with that of being. So, and because of that, and the unreason taints of being increased in him, and a reason taints of being increased. So unreason taints of ignorance arise. That's why this is how we develop the views of how we view things, because we identify this with the greed, the sensual desires. Then we identify with that, then give rise to this being. We are this, we are that, and that we increase our ignorance. So these are things unfit for attention that he attends to. And what are the things fit for attention that he does not attend to? There are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taints of sensual desires does not arise in him, and the arisen taints of sensual desire is abandoned. The unarisen taints of being does not arise in him, the arisen taints of being is abandoned. So the unarisen taints of ignorance does not arise in him, and the arisen taints of ignorance is abandoned. These are the things fit for attention that he does not attend to. By attending to things unfit for attention, and by not attending to things fit for attention, both arisen taints arise in him and arisen taints increase. This is how he attains unwisely. So this is how because it's been repeating. It's just like, so when we get caught in that, we've been identified with that experience, that desires, that is the craving, the sensual desires, and then we get caught with that. Then we give rise to the craving to being. We identify with that, So me and mine. So then we started to attack. This is how we get caught, one thing leading to another, because when we are not careful, when we are heedless, so we get caught in that. Then we will give rise to, we will follow that thoughts, go further. So from sensual desires, we identify those as me and mine. So then the craving to be exists, being. This is me, this is mine. For example, we love a beautiful girl. So okay, this my happiness is from this beautiful girl. I love her, and this something. Hold on to that, And from that is how we identify ourselves. Even with our children, we identify me and mine. So this is how we go further. Then was I in the past? You see, then we started to, because this sense of self gives rise to this sense of self, isn't it? Then doubt arises. Then we started to question, isn't it? Who am I? Was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? And how was I in the past? And haven't been what? And what did I become in the past? Shall I be in the future? Shall I not be in the future? What shall I be in the future? How shall I be in the future? Having been what? What shall I become in the future? This is how we started to have doubt, to questions. So is it that is a rebirth in the future? There is me in the future, or there is me? How? When, how, what was I in the past, and what will I be in the future? And this is, we started because it started from the trigger of that when we seeing something, and this is how this taints leading one thing to another because of the sensual desires. Then we started to have all this thinking about it, and we identify this as a self, as this experience as me and mine. and this self arises. That is the bhava asava. The bhava asava is being like these taints of existence. We are exist. We identify those as me and my, I am exist. So then we started to give rise to this doubt, about whether what was I, whether there is a past, whether there is any future, any rebirth, So if there is rebirth, there is the future. So who will I become? And how is it? And whole lots of, we started to think, isn't it? I remember when I was young, and I always so scared when I think of that, is it, I don't know what will I be. And if I die, I don't know what, and started all sorts of speculations, and things, and then I find very scary. So each time I think that, okay, I'm too young to think about it. Maybe let me think about it when let me worry about it when I get older. We think that only old people will die. We never think that, die will come anytime. So that's kind of, like you just sometimes you don't know, isn't it? Whether there is past, whether there's, I don't know who I was in the past, and I don't know what I will become in the future. And this whole lots, they have lots of doubts. That's why, and then this is how we get caught, we go further. And this is how it develops. And when those already arisen taints, actually we strengthen those, become stronger. This underlying tendency becomes stronger. Craving to be existent becomes stronger because we react to that. We give attention to that. When we give attention to that, it goes further, isn't it? So just give you an example. When I was a trainee nun, and sometimes how I remember that you live in the monastery, then you are living in a community. I remember one day I was feel hurt because I feel like I've been accused of things that I didn't do, So I went back to my kuti and I was really hurt and upset that, how come that, I'm not like that, This is how we think who we are, we think who, So because if someone said something that we are, we haven't done something, and then how we identify ourselves isn't who we are. When someone says something that is contradict to who we think we are, we got upset. We feel hurt, they identify that is the me and my, the self is there. So then that time I get caught a little bit because I have that reaction. Because I get caught. Because through hearing, through the senses, isn't it? Through the hearing, seeing, and hearing things that, that's contradict to who I take myself to be. So then after that, I was walking up and down in the walking path. Then I started to investigate, that's why this is called wise attention, So I reflect, to give consideration, investigate. Actually, this wise attention, that means to investigate, to give consideration, to look at it, to reflect, on that, So, and from that, I started to reflect and investigate. Then I asked myself, why can't people say something to me? Why can't people accuse of me? I said, who am I? And then at that moment I realized that this is I attached to the sense of self. Then I realized that the bigger the ego, the easier you get hurt. You feel hurt, isn't it? Because me, you talk about me, I am, and then that's why if I'm not careful, then I develop a lot of anger and hatred towards the person who accusing me, isn't it? And we think that the person is terrible, horrible, and then we think that our problem is from that person. And this is how we reinforce that if we are not careful. That's why whenever we suffer, it's good that we go back by yourself and investigate to really, give consideration and reflect on that. Because very easily we get caught. And then we think that our suffering is, we can't see that is our own clinging, our own grasping of me and mine. We can't see that. And then we will blame all the people outside, isn't it? Who said that? Actually, what other people say is just sound come in and sound out. you know. But because we take that, you know, when that is we have these 5 senses. They say the karma asava, that is from our senses, you know, the 5 senses. That is these things come from that. So when we hear things, when we have context, that feeling arises. That is this dependent origination. When we have the body, we have these 5 senses. When there is contact, feeling arises. Pleasant, unpleasant. Then that is where we get caught, isn't it? We get caught with that. And with that, we give rise to, you know, this craving, tanha. You know, craving to be, craving not to be, craving like sensory pleasure. We want more. This is nice. This is good. And we can't get what we want. We got upset. We got angry. That is come from tanha. Tanha come from that is craving. Then come to upadana. That is grasping, clinging, isn't it? We hold on to that. That the attachment. This is how we attach. We started to identify ourselves with all the experience, all the like and dislike, you know. We started to identify ourselves. That is the senses of the ego. And this is how the dependence origination. Then we start with all this mentally, with how we think about it, and we try to make sense of it, and we develop these views, how we view ourselves. And then actually we are we will strengthen our views of ourselves, isn't it? Because we get caught. This is how. Then our ego become bigger, rather than being weakened. But if we see that, we don't follow that, we don't react to that. It's just like yesterday, the thoughts that I gave. You know, if you don't attend to that, you do not follow that, you do not react to that, then you will not go further. So that's like, this is how that is from the bhava asava, the karma asava, that is the sensual desires, that then leading to this bhava asava, that is the being, the existing being exists, the taints, that is this is some translate these taints as influence or influx. For the Chinese agamas, they translate as outflow. This is how we outflow. Our energy is going out there, thinking that this is being influenced by that, the influx, because of the context, and this arises, and this is how our energy, isn't it? Actually, this use up lots of energy, isn't it? Can be very draining when our mind, go on and on with this, and then got upset, got angry with this emotion, and that is how we leading that. Then this is our senses of our ego being become stronger. This is how we get caught in this samsara and this dependent origination, when we get this clinging and attachment to that. And then this is how the birth, we existence, then we have rebirth, we have another rebirth, and then we cannot escape from this old age, illness, sickness, and death, and then we go round and round and round in that samsara. So yes.
How would you deal with that situation if you were in the workforce?
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be so easy. If you said you were on your own, you were able to walk the path and reflect for some of your teaching.
Mm.
But somebody's in the workforce and they're being accused like that.
Yeah, they say sometimes it's good that we try to avoid, like, for example, sometimes if you know that you really can't deal with the situation, it's always good to walk away. That's why I can understand, like, sometimes it's allowed people to have the space to deal with that. But that's why it's very important that we apply this, moment to moment mindfulness in our daily life. Our practice is not only sitting on the cushion. So be consciously aware, and we learn how to stop. how to prevent that from going further,
What I was mainly thinking of is the rest of the staff.
No, that time actually I be able, on that spot, actually I be able to hold myself. Like, I'm not like, because of the practice, I do have some extent, sometimes you can hold yourself that moment, but doesn't mean that you have let it go, isn't it? In front of people, okay, you just smile, but inside there is still, you couldn't let that go, it's there, because it's your sense of self, your sense of self-interest being threatened, isn't it? This is me, this is mine, something, someone said something that is like, you feel your sense of self being threatened, isn't it? Because how we identify who we are, this sense of self. So this is how normally when I feel that I have, because I have enough mindfulness and I have enough strength to hold myself, and I know that this is what that I need to deal with, then I go back there. I used to walk up and down, I walk up and down my kuti, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I just keep letting that out. And then, this keep coming, this thinking about it is coming and coming. And then I just, to observe, to see what's happening to the mind, and this happening, and suffering, isn't it? Then I can see the suffering, So that is the suffering. But a lot of people don't see that suffering. If you see that there is a suffering, then she will do something about it. And you started to look for what causes this suffering. Why causes me suffering? Why I get upset if people say something, It doesn't matter what other people say, it's just sound, Why I bother so much? And I carry that with me, Then this is how you really investigate and reflect and asking yourself questions. I find that it's very useful for my own practice, that I used to ask myself questions. I investigate, asking myself why and why not, And it's just surprisingly, we deep down we do have the knowing, we do know, isn't it? But it's only thing that we couldn't let go because the attachment of the sense of self, the ego, we couldn't let that go. On one hand, we do deep down, we know. But it's not true, How come that person said that? You just couldn't let that go. And that's why we are here. Because the ego, the sense of self, that's why we are here, we're clinging on to that. Again and again we keep, That's why it's important that we don't, that is unwise, we attend this unwisely. We give attention to that. When we attend to those things unwisely, it's grow and leading one thing to another. And then next time, then we give and next time in the same situation, it becomes stronger, the emotion becomes more and more intense, the intensity of, this is how we strengthen that. So, but even though we do not react to that, we do not strengthen that, but next time it still comes out. But it will stop by itself if we keep doing, keep practicing, keep doing, not to, we try to attend wisely to this whenever these taints arises. If we are not careful, of course the taints arise. But sometimes if we are mindful enough, this will not come out. But sometimes, of course, our mindfulness is not that always. So this comes out. Then, if we be able to deal with it, to really have this wise attention, not to attend to it, unwisely, because we know that this is unfit. If we are going follow along that, and we create more suffering for ourselves. So that is actually it's good to always, when we suffer, we always go back and investigate and look at where the suffering coming from. And this is how we are giving this wise attention. We attend to it wisely, not to because it's unfit for us to attend to it. Some of the things we shouldn't attend to that, because of it's unfit. Because like, for example, like the craving comes, if we keep focusing on that, then the greed become, we strengthen that. So, but it's just like we feed that, it's grow. If we starve it, it won't grow. But it doesn't mean that it will stop. Like, yes, I think Friday, don't know, some of you were here, one of the questions were asked that, is it possible that we be able to really totally abandon the sense of self? You know, I said it's possible, but it takes time. It's not easy. You know, it's possible. They said, is it possible? I said, it's possible. It's just like, I like to give the simile of the wheel, like, you know, it's just like the energy is keep spinning, you know. So when we attend to that, then we are reinforced that. So we spinning the wheel, and it keeps spinning faster, isn't it? When we react, it's just like we kicking the wheel, it's spinning faster. So when we don't react, it still spin. You know, even we don't kick the wheel, it still continue to spin. But when we keep doing that, not to feed it, not to react to that, not to kicking the wheel, not to spin it, and eventually the wheel will be slower, stop, isn't it? If you leave it alone, it stop. But the problem is we cannot leave it alone, isn't it? One thing, anything arises, we give meaning to it, we take important. You see, letting go means we letting them be, but we try to manipulate, we try to push it away, we try to suppress it, you know, we try to deny, we try to pretend that it's not there, we do all sorts of things, isn't it? Whenever things that we like, we want more, we crave. Things that we don't like, we try to push it away. And then we are constantly interfering, because actually these things is non-self. It arises, it just pass away, it's just, you know, come and go by itself. But the problem is we are the one who create that, we are the one to reinforce that again and again. So that is how our, yes?
So like, for instance, here we have to earn a certain amount of money to survive, to pay our bills and to do things. And so me as an example, I will then look at, okay, I've got to have X amount of money coming in each week to pay the bills. So where is the line for the greed of money, or the greed of wanting things? Because for me, I do need to pay my bills and I have to survive, clothes, cars, food, to keep everything running. Where is the line for that?
That is where your wisdom come in. The Buddha said that's the middle way. That is your own wisdom, that you know that how much you need. So you only get what you need and not what you want. Sometimes the thing that we want might not be the things that we need. It's just we want it. I see some people buy lots of things and never even use it. I have seen someone, you know, when I was in Singapore, someone told me that her relatives whole wardrobes, and she gave her a new dress. Even the price tag is still there. It's amazing. She said she bought her whole wardrobes. She said some of the dress, even the price tag is still there, haven't worn, brand new. Because sometimes we think that we just want it, but we don't really need it, isn't it? But that's why the Buddha's, at the beginning, you remember the Buddha's when he before his enlightenment, because of the thing that the problem is come from this sensory pleasure, then he should, he stopped himself, self-modification. So this is not, we need to have basic physical comfort in order to practice. You see, we have to have a relatively healthy body, isn't it? So that's why we just get what we need, how much we need. So, and then that's it. And then we try to live as simply as we can. Basically we do not need a lot to be happy, isn't it?
But then, like, for instance, with desires to travel and to see different things.
Yeah, that's why this is why that's where you have to restrain yourself. Asking yourself, do I really need it? Is it that, Haven't I seen enough?
But isn't it fun and enjoyable?
So, and how long it lasts? And sometimes we do have to ask ourselves. Like I remember that I think I share this with many people, these stories that when I was, I remember this gentleman, it was here too, when I give the talks, I was invited to Burma. And before that I was peaceful, I was so happy completely. I have no craving, no any desires to go anywhere. I was really quite happy and peaceful until someone invited me to go to Burma. And this is trigger of my desires. And I think about it the whole night. I was thinking, tomorrow how am I going to talk to Ajahn Maya? How am I going to convince her to let me go? And the whole night, and I feel that so much suffering. Then after that, I asked myself, what the heck are you doing? And I said, and I realized that the thinking about it is so much suffering. How to get that, That is the thinking about how to get this thing actually is very unpleasant. And I realized that it's very unpleasant in me. And I said, why I get into this, Then I stopped. I said, okay, that's it. Tomorrow, what I need to do, I just can tell her that I was invited. If she said, okay, you can go, fine, I go. If she said, can't, fine, I don't go. Because I have enough suffering. Because thinking about it, thinking of how to get that, that drive, that kind of energy, actually is very unpleasant. If your mindfulness is strong enough, you feel that it's very unpleasant to try to get things. You feel that it's very unpleasant. Then I realized that actually those kind of excitement, those craving, actually is a very afflictive, Then I drop it. I said, no, I'm not going to go. If she said, yes, I can go, okay, it's a bonus. If I can't go, I'm happy too. I don't have to go. So how much I need to see, isn't it? Like I remember when I was in Singapore and I, busy the whole week, the last day, and then I come back, right from, I get down from the plane, and already give a blessing to someone and later talk to someone from 7 to 10 o'clock and the next morning conduct, give talks in the afternoon and another talks in the evening and then 2 days meditation workshop and whole series of talks. I was giving 10 topics of talks to give, within a few days, every day at least 2 talks, and with the ceremony and things like that and talking to people. And the last day, I just, I'm quite, okay, I can relax, I go back. And I was saying with once a lay supporters, she's hosting me. I'm living, she had 4 levels, so I was on the penthouse level. So she come and, like my kapia, she looked after me. Then I was relaxing myself, sitting there, meditating. Suddenly she comes out, she said, I was thinking that I haven't taken you to look around. Because I went back, after finish about 5-ish, She said, you want to go out to have a sightseeing? I said, no, thank you. I said, I'm fine, I'm okay. Are you all right? Is she sure? Because she is just good. She think that is kind, want to take me to go around for sightseeing. I said, no, I do not need that. Because to me, like if you have experienced the more refined type of happiness, and this kind of happiness becomes like this kind of excitement to see things becomes much coarser than the other type of happiness. You don't crave for that anymore. This is why you don't crave for that, because that is very gross compared to the happiness come from stillness, the happiness come from, the deep meditation. And this is just like, just like people having all this refined food, and when you taste the coarser food, you say, this is more coarser. The same thing. So I said, I said, no, I don't want to go. I told her that I don't want to go. And because this is how people think that go around sightseeing, see this, see that, will be happy. So, and sometimes it's good you restrain yourself. So, because this is how, like, it's just Achancha said to his monk, he said, most of us don't do terrible thing, isn't it? You don't. But this underlying tendency, and this is not immoral by itself, it's not. So it depends on whether we want to keep wandering in the samsara or not. You know, so if we really want to get out of this cycle of rebirth, that we need to restrain ourselves, not to allow this asava, this underlying tendency that really keep us in samsara. That's why we need to give consideration, reflections, and look at it, you know, to keep a check, you know, and also keep us in place, not to follow that. So is it answer your question? Yeah. Yeah. That's why you need to practice. That's why you need to restrain first. You need to weaken it. That's why, because the five hindrances actually is the condition that clouded the mind. That's why we have this distorted view. How we view things, we distort it. We perceive dukkha as happiness, you know. And that's why we have to abandon that. But before that, we need to weaken, you know, because it will not totally uproot if it's too strong. It's just like we keeping precept, we strength when we restrain that, you know, that is help to weaken it. It's just like you have seen how people cut the big tree. They can't just cut like that. You can't, isn't it? You have to start to cut all the branches before you uproot the whole thing, and then the branches. Then you come to the tree trunks, and slowly then only you left only that part only they pull out. You can't just pull the whole tree out. It's the same thing. Like that is by restraining actually is you have to weaken that. We have to restrain ourselves before we can uproot the whole thing, and be able to abandon, to be able to overcome that five hindrances. That's why you have to be in deep jhana. That's why, you know, that is without the view, because then we can see things clearly. But it's a long way to go there, isn't it? So that's why all these practices is just keep doing. That's why we don't thinking too far ahead that what attainment, you know. So we don't, but we just keep doing, because it's the Buddha's emphasize again and again is a gradual training. It takes time, little by little. So you can't just destruct the whole thing, isn't it? That's why we have all these practices. Actually, all these practices is to not to strengthen our taints, our defilements. So because when we react to that, actually we strengthen that, and then it becomes more intense, isn't it? That's why you slowly, then until that you without these five hindrances, then the mind is really clear, bright. Then you can see things as they really are. You can see things. You can see that. You can really see these three characteristics. You understand the Four Noble Truths. But it's not the superficial type, you know. Of we thought that we know. Actually, that is not the one, you know. And you need, but we can't just use willpower to just get there. So it takes time, you know. Keep practicing, restraining our mind. That's why we keep precepts, you know, to restrain ourselves, to weaken the five hindrances. Then we can only to overcome that, you know, slowly, you know. And it's a gradual training. It takes time.
And I guess it would also be around your own personal boundaries or lines of what you think is greed and what you think is needed.
That's why again and again it's come back to the wisdom as well. That's why the whole path of practice is Noble Four Path. You begin with, that's why with right view, and right intention. And the end of the path is also is wisdom. So we got to have a bit of wisdom to start off with, to see that is what is really beneficial, what is not beneficial. And that's right, to where to draw the line actually is have to come from our practice. And actually no one help us. We have to help ourselves to develop our own wisdom and see where to draw the line and where we should restrain ourselves and keep investigating. You see, do I want to continue like that? Do I want to just, keep going, or I want to go further? And not to worry so much. This is it's just cause and effect, things, you just put in the causes, you keep practicing, and we have to start with where we at, and we cannot say that I just want to straight away, I want to become Sabbasava. You cannot, We have to start with where we at, and it is, it's just example. For example, if from here, from Gijikena to Perth, it takes about 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and we cannot say I want it faster. I want half an hour. You can't, isn't it? It just takes that long time because you have so much, to do, because this is being accumulated for so long. And it takes time to wear out that energy. It takes time. So that's why the Buddha said it's a gradual training. So, but actually it's good sometimes we read this to remind us, sometimes that we check ourselves out, keep check and restrain ourselves and ask ourselves whether do I really need this? How much I need in order to be happy? So, okay, then because of this, the sense of self, and then that when he attains unwisely in this way, one of the 6 views arises. One of the 6 views, how we view ourselves, personality views, how we view ourselves. That is a Avijja asava. This is the taints arises. You see, one leading to another. You see, and the view self exists for me arise in him as true and established, as I just now mentioned to you. How we take this to be me and mine. That is the self exists for me arise in him as true and established. Or the view no self exists for me, arise in him and establish. Here no self doesn't mean that is what the Buddha talking about, the non-self is annihilation. There is no self, there is annihilation. Like there is craving to be and craving not to be. Craving not to be is annihilation. There is no rebirth, no self. That's it, There's only one birth. That is not the non-self that the Buddha mentioned. So this is no self exists for me, arise in him as true and established. That is annihilation. Or the view I perceive self with self arises in him as true and established. That is, you perceive that is a self, that is the observer, the self, observing all these emotion phenomena that as a self. Like a coin with 2 sides. Like that is a self, that is the observer, that is the observed with the observer. And the observer with what we observe, that is also self. And then he said, I perceive not self with self. That means that is everything is just consciousness. So it's all energy. There is no self. But even that also a self. Like nowadays with this psychology, the modern psychologists, they talk about, all these impermanence, and perceptions, and then they say, all this is energy. There is no self. But the energy is also self, So that is not the Buddha's teaching of non-self. Is not that no one there. It's just that this thing is not this thing is not like unchanged, it's not there forever, the same me there, That is because it keeps changing. So this is not what the Buddha's teaching of non-self, but a lot of been this not self that is annihilation. And then this one, when they said that this consciousness is not self, but so whatever that the I perceive self with not self, yes, then all this is non-self, is all energy, and this is also a self. So arises in me as true and established, or else he has some such views as this. Is this self of mind that speak and feel and experience here and there the results of good and bad actions, but this self of mind is permanent, everlasting, eternal, no subject to change, and it will endure as long as eternity. So all this how we have these speculative views that is self, this is self eternal, there is no change, that is me, Even if you read this embracing next of all views, that this Brahmajara Suttas, that is the Buddha's talk about many types of views. Even the Buddha's mentioned, I remember it was really struck me when I read that many years ago. It's more than 15 years ago I read that. And even some monks, he be able to recollect their past life, because he can recollect many past life. And his belief that is self, because you see, I have self. And that belief that is the eternal self. Even some people there is a wrong view, distorted view. So actually there are the four distorted views the Buddha's mentioned. That is the view that we perceive pain as happiness, pleasure. So that is a distorted view. And something that is unattractive as something that is attractive. Something that is not permanent, we perceive that as a permanent. It's fixed, it's permanent, it's always eternal. And then things that is non-self, there's no self there, as self. So this is the four distorted views. And this is the inherent taints. There is the asava. There is avijja asava. So these speculative views, because is called the takers of views, the wilderness of views, the conductions of views, the vacillation of views, the factors of views, factored by the factors of views. The untaught ordinary person is not free from birth, aging, death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. He is not free from suffering, I said. Because a well-taught noble disciple who has regard for noble ones, and is skilled and disciplined in the Dharma, who has regard for true men and is skilled and disciplined in the Dharma, understand that things are fit for attention and things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he does not attend to those things unfit for attention, and he attends to those things fit for attention. What are things unfit for attention that he does not attend to? There are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taints of sensual desires arise in him. Then he repeat again that the paragraph 6. That is that is go back to the this is repeat as the paragraph 6, in him, and the unarisen taints of sensual desire increase. The unarisen taints of being arises in him, and the arisen taints of being increased. The unarisen taints of ignorance arises in him, and the arisen of taints of ignorance increases. So he repeat that again. And the taints arisen taints of ignorance increase. These are the things unfit for attention and that he does not attend to. And what are the things fit for attention that he attends to? There are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taints of sensual desires does not arise in him, and the arisen, and he repeat as the 6 again. And the recent taints of ignorance is abandoned. These are the things fit for attention that he attends to. By not attending to things unfit for attention, attending to things fit for attention. And the recent taints do not arise in him, and recent taints are abandoned. So this is, just now I have mentioned, if we don't get caught and to reinforce that, and that is slow, then it will be abandoned. So this will not come up to, like for example, we got the senses. So I think further they did mention about things to be abandoned by restraining, by avoiding, by using. So I will go through that. So these are things fit for attention that he attends to by not attending to things unfit for attention, and by attending to things that fit for attention, and the recent things do not arise in him, and recent things are abandoned. So he attends wisely. This is suffering. So that's why we can, and he attends wisely. This is origin of suffering. He attends wisely. This is the cessation of suffering. He attends wisely. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. When he attends wisely in this way, three factors are abandoned in him: personality views, doubt, adherence to rules and observance. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by seeing. That is, you are seeing the Dhamma. That is the stream winner. You see you see the Four Noble Truths. That is, then the three lower factors, that doubt, adherence to rules and observance, and personality views, and that's abandoned. So that is referred to the Sotapanna, the stream winners, that you see the Dhamma. So now he goes to taints to be abandoned by restraining. What taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by restraining? Here a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, abides with eyes, faculties restrained. What taints, vexations, fever might arise in one who abides with eyes, faculties unrestrained. There are no taints, vexations, or fever in one who abides with the eyes, faculties restrained. Reflecting wisely, he abides with the ear faculties restrained, with nose faculties restrained, with tongue and all the five senses, with the body faculties restrained, with the mind faculties restrained. While taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who abides with faculties unrestrained, there are no taints, vexations, or fever in one who abides with faculties restrained. So these are called taints that should be abandoned by restraining. So we restrain our senses. Like just now we have already discussed with that, like that we want to see things, we want to go for that. This is how we restrain ourselves. Like we don't have to go there. Then we don't. That is how we don't go further. We restrain by restrain our five senses and restrain our mind when the thoughts comes out. With this sensual pleasure arises. So that is the taints to be abandoned by using. He said, what taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by using? Here a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, uses the ropes only for protection from cold, for protection for heat, for protection from contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, creeping things, and only for purpose of concealing the private parts. Reflecting wisely, we use alms food, neither for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty, attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of this body, for ending discomfort, and for assisting the holy life. Considering thus, I shall terminate all feelings without arousing new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless, and shall live in comfort. Reflecting wisely, he used the resting place only for protection from cold, for protection from heat, for protection from contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, creeping things, and only for purpose of warding off perils of climates, and for enjoying retreat. Reflecting wisely, he uses medicinal requisites only for protection from arising afflicting feelings and not for the benefit of good health. What taints, vexation and fever might arises in one who does not use requisite thus, there are no taints, vexations or fever in one who uses them thus. This is called taints that should be abandoned by using. This is how, like, we use it, like for example, like nowadays, like a lot of people attached to, like, healthy is not enough, they want healthier, isn't it? Then they stop themselves with lots of health food, the supplement, this is very expensive, organic, this and that. And I find these people become more unhealthy because it's very stressed, isn't it? Because you're so worried about your health, so much that actually becomes more unhealthy. So yes, we need to look after when we are sick, we see doctors, but sometimes people tend to worry so much and clinging on to that, That's why we have to, when we use this thing also, we reflect, give considerations, That's why each time, whatever we use, that's why in the monastic training, we always, that's why we have this monastic reflection, that each time, actually, I encourage the nuns to reflect that even every day, because we used to do this chanting every fortnight. That is, I'm no longer living according to worldly aims and values. Sometimes we need to keep reflecting ourselves. Why we are here for? If we come to the monastery, we voluntarily to isolate ourselves, and we are still not. If we are still crave and still like to go out, accompany, go out with others, like to, then what's the point of coming in? So that's why this is how we keep reminding ourselves, reflection. The Buddha asked, for one who has conformed, you have to keep reflecting and reminding ourselves why we are here, why you put on robes. So, and I'm no longer, and my very life is sustained through the gifts of others. And the Buddha said this should be reflected again and again by one who has gone forth. So, and then we eat, we reflect that the food is just medicine. To just feel, we are not here, we are eat to live. We are not here to live to eat. But a lot of people live to eat, isn't it? Spend so much time to eat this and that, and put in so much effort, what is tasty, what is nice, and and some people can spend the whole time, get all this food that delicious, this is the best food, so much time and energy, isn't it? So we are not here we are not eat to live, we are eat to live but not live to eat. So that's why it's good that when we use it, when we're using this when whatever the requisite we use, food, the resting place, the lodging, the dress, the clothes that we wear, it's good enough, no need to have branded one, no need to have expensive one. It's enough to keep us warm. So that's why we do not need a lot, actually, isn't it? And a dwelling place that, how much we need. Even you got a big house, we only need 4 by 6, And you got a big house also, you cannot sleep from one place to another, isn't it? And it make us really tired and stressed. So you need 4 by 6. This is important. We remind ourselves. That's why this is how the Buddha said, this wise attention, that is, we reflect, give consideration, ask ourselves when we want something, when we want to get something, we ask ourselves, do we really need it? That's why this is the reason, that's why in the monastery we do have the rules like it's also it's also in the Bhikkhunis rules. Like as a nuns, we are not allowed to ask unless we've been offered. But we can't even hint that, try to hint at what we want, And sometimes it's just amazing. We can live without lots of things, when we don't have it. We just make do. And sometimes I always feel happy, especially when you go overseas to teach. You have many people that want to offer you things, I'm so glad, I'm happy that each time I said, no, I do not need anything. So we do not need so much, in order to be happy. Actually, it's a burden to have lots of things, isn't it? It's not, don't bring you much happiness. Actually, it's a burden. It's the more you have, the more you have to look after, isn't it? You have to worry about it, and you don't even worry about whether the robbers come in to rob you. You have nothing to give. It's okay, you help yourself, see whatever you can take, please take it. If you don't have valuable things, you don't even worry about that, isn't it? So, taints to be abandoned by endurance. So what taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by endurance? Here a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, bears cold, heat, hungers, and thirst, and contact with gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and creeping things, endures ill-spoken, unwelcome words, and arisen bodily feelings that are painful, racking, sharp, piercing, disagreeable, distressing, and menacing to life. What taints, vexations, and fear might arise in one who does not endure such things, there are no taints, vexation, or fever in one who endures them. They call the taints that should be abandoned by enduring. They said, like, this is how, that just now we talk about the how when you're outside there, like someone saying things like that. So sometimes we just endure, practice endurance. So okay, just endure. So okay, if some people just say terrible things to us, we just endure that. But because when we got upset, when we react to that, and then we got into the argument, quarrel or fight, then we strengthen the taints that already arisen. And arisen one arise, and those already arise one becomes stronger. So there's like sometimes we got to endure. If people call us stupid or anything, so we just endure. So keep telling, just keep, like Ajahn Chah used to ask yourself, if someone call you dog and you see whether you got the tail. So sometimes we just have to remind ourselves, to endure that it's okay. What are the nasty thing people said to us? So keep cool. Actually, I find that it's quite useful that for myself that sometimes I do use, like sometimes you can pacify your mind. Not like, for example, like if someone says something and then you keep telling yourself, keep cool, something that is really works for you, certain words, Some people used to say chill out, You keep saying that, Then you become like you focus on that like a mantra. Then you keep, then you won't, that to stop your mind is going further and listening to what that person said, and then you just keep to yourself like a mantra, So that cool, or calm down, then you just keep that. So let the person say, and then you just, then you don't react. I know sometimes it's not easy. So taints to be abandoned by avoiding. You see, what taints because should be abandoned by avoiding? Here a bhikkhu reflecting wisely, avoid a wild elephants, a wild horse, a wild bull, a wild dogs, snakes, stump, bramble, patch, chasm, cliff, chestpits, a sewer. Reflecting wisely, he avoids sitting on unsuitable seat, wandering to unsuitable resort, and associating with bad friends. Since he were to do so, wise companions in the holy life might suspect him of evil conduct. So what taints, vexations, and fever might arise in one who does not avoid these things. There are no taints, vexation, and fever in ones who avoid them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by avoiding. Just like we know that we associate with those friends that, that is not a good friends, then we avoid. So we know that if we associate with these, people long enough, sometimes we think that we not be affected. Doesn't mean that we are not be kind to them. We are kind to them, when we see them, if they need help, we can help them, but not to associate with them. So because we know that it's not really good for us, isn't it? Like some of the things we know that we go down to the track, what is going to happen? Sometimes we know, then we should avoid, isn't it? If we know that this thing, when we get caught and then we know that when we go down to the track and what is then we're going to suffer, then we avoid that. We don't go into that, isn't it? So that's why this is the taints to be abandoned by avoiding. So taints to be abandoned by removing. What taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by removing? Here a bhikkhu reflecting wisely does not tolerate and the reason thoughts of sensual desires. He abandons it, remove it, does away with it, annihilates with it, annihilates it. He does not tolerate and a reason thoughts of ill will. He does not tolerate and a reason thoughts of cruelty. He does not tolerate a reason evil, unwholesome state. He abandons them, removes them, does away with them, and annihilates them. While taints, vexation, and fever might arisen in one who does not remove these thoughts, these are no taints, vexation, or fever in ones who remove them. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by removing. So that is how where you have to practice that right effort, to not to allow these unwholesome thoughts, to persist and try to remove it, find ways how to, not to allow this to come in, to remove it. So what taints bhikkhus should be abandoned by developing? Here a bhikkhu reflecting wisely develops the mindfulness, enlightenment factors, which is supported by seclusion, dispassions and cessations, and ripens in relinquishments. He develops in the investigation of state enlightenment factors, in energy enlightenment factors, rapture enlightenment factors, tranquility enlightenment factors, concentration enlightenment factors, equanimity enlightenment factors, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishments. What taints, vexation and fever might arise in one who does not develop these enlightenment factors. These no taints, vexation or fever in one who develop them. These are called the taints these are called the taints that should be abandoned by developing. So you develop these 7 factors of enlightenment. When you have these 7 factors of enlightenment, so then that the taints will not arise. That will abandon these taints. So conclusion, bhikkhus. When for a bhikkhu's taints that should be abandoned by seeing have been abandoned by seeing, when the taints should be abandoned by restraining, have been abandoned by restraining, when the taints that should be abandoned by using have been abandoned by using, when the taints that should be abandoned by enduring have been abandoned by enduring, when the taints that should be abandoned by avoiding have been abandoned by avoiding, when taints that should be abandoned by removing have been abandoned by removing, when the taints that should be abandoned by developing have been abandoned by developing, then he is called bhikkhu who dwells restrained with the restraint of all the taints. He has severed craving, flung off fetters, and with the complete penetrations of conceit, he has made an end of suffering. This is what the Blessed One said, the bhikkhus who satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So any more questions or comments? There is the 7 factors. That is mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then there is the first one is 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then there is the rapture, piti, sukha, and what it says, the happiness, and the tranquility, and then the stillness, the happiness, stillness, and then the equanimity. That's the 7. There's the 7 factors of enlightenment. So yeah. So this asava is this underlying tendency That's, that's when we have this contact, when we are not careful, when we are heedless, so we get caught. Then this is how craving arises, and then clinging, and then we develop these views, these personality views that is ignorance. Then that's why it's the existing to be. And this is how we keep, we carry this, into the stream of consciousness, into the next life, and keep go on, and then we keep, reacting to that. We keep reinforce that tendency again and again and again. That's why, so we keep, in that circle again and again. So yeah, so that's a mess.
We can't practice endurance and forgiveness without being practically provoked.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm looking at this from a different angle,
Mm-hmm.
as an opportunity to practice, to become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a chance for me to practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this is a gradual training. It's will not happen overnight. So that's why sometimes a lot of people do not take delights or do not appreciate how far they come to. They always say that I have no progress, but actually they did. They do really well. Compared to you look back. Sometimes you see. Like in the past, you used to be very up and down already. Reacting to, in the same situation, but now you become really cool, and of course it's little by little. So we cannot use our willpower to get rid of this. If we can do that, all of us got enlightened already. So we all. That's what the Buddha said. If the teaching that what the Buddha is teaching, he will not teach if those listen to his teaching and apply it and follow instruction, to apply it. And if they cannot get enlightened, so what's the point that he's going to teach? It's no point. It teach you're not going to get enlightened anyway. So it's just wasting his time and energy. But it's because it's possible, but it's difficult. But because we've been conditioned, we are all results oriented. We always want to look at the results. And actually, it's we have to put in the causes, keep practicing, and and actually we keep looking at what we haven't achieved yet, and we don't look at what we already so far have achieved to really appreciate oneself, because it's important to be able to have the appreciate oneself. And to have this self-respect, because when you have that, then you have this self-confidence. You have confidence that you have the faith that, me too, I can get enlightened. It's possible. It's not that it's impossible. So any more questions or comments? Okay, maybe we're going to end.